on Goblin Reddit. Today's story is...
My sister-in-law thought that giving her my car was an insult. 4 months later, her decision changed our whole family dynamic. A few months ago, my husband's sister ended her marriage. Her ex threw her out of the house after she insisted on trying an open relationship. For context, my sister-in-law has twin babies. She got pregnant at a very young age, and this led her to marry her then-partner very quickly. For several years, she has told me that she regrets having missed out on that carefree stage that many enjoy in their early 20s. She always regrets not having been able to socialize and live for herself before taking on so many responsibilities. In a way, it didn't surprise me when she started to raise the idea of opening up their marriage with her husband. However, this generated enormous tensions that eventually led her husband to end the relationship. Except for child support, my sister-in-law did not get much from the divorce, and to make matters worse, as she was unemployed, she had to move back in with her mother. Seeing her in such difficulty, my husband and I tried to encourage her to look for work. We wanted to help her get back on her feet, and I even spent time organizing and improving her CV to increase her job opportunities. After much insistence and effort, she finally got a job at a nearby restaurant. Although this is a positive step forward, the establishment is quite a distance from where she lives. Without her own car, she has had to use public transport, taking buses every day. As a divorced mother raising 2 children on her own, I could relate to her situation. This daily commute not only takes up valuable time, but also adds additional stress to her already complicated life. When I was at university, my dad gave me his old car. Over the years, I invested a lot in refurbishing it, and it became a vehicle that I really cherished. I used it for a long time, and it held many memories for me. This year I bought a new car, but I resisted selling the old one. It still worked perfectly, and we decided to keep it for emergencies. From time to time, my husband or I would use it when one of our main cars was in the workshop. Reflecting on my sister-in-law's situation, I realized that this car could significantly transform her daily routine. The time she spent on buses could be spent with her children or simply resting after her working day. After discussing it with my husband, we agreed to give her my old car, completely free of charge. The vehicle was in excellent condition, and we even filled the tank completely before handing it over. That day, we took the car to my mother-in-law's house when my sister-in-law was present. When we gave her the keys and explained that it now belonged to her, she was totally amazed. She knows how important that car is to me, so it was a truly emotional moment. She was pleasantly surprised and moved by our gesture. After processing it, she sincerely thanked us and happily accepted the gift. We felt good about being able to make her life a little easier during this complicated stage. However, the day after we gave her the car, my mother-in-law called me unexpectedly. Before I tell you what she said, I need to explain something about her personality because it is relevant. My mother-in-law can be really unpleasant with others. From our first meeting, I clearly remember her rude and contemptuous attitude towards me. That first impression was so strong that I will never forget it. Over time, my husband has shared stories about how she has always behaved like that. Both he and his sister have learned to tolerate her because, as he says, that's just how she is. My mother-in-law always seems annoyed or irritated by something. She doesn't hesitate to shout at anyone, whether they are family, strangers, or employees who are simply doing their job. For example, if we take her out to eat, she will criticize insignificant details just to have a reason to scold the waiter. If we go to a park, she will get angry at children playing and end up yelling at their parents for not controlling them properly. She even makes a fuss about things like ambient noise or the weather, as if the world should adjust to her preferences. Another characteristic of theirs is their apparent lack of awareness of how their actions affect others. They play videos or music at full volume on their phone, even in public, or when others are trying to relax. If we kindly ask them to use headphones, they immediately become defensive and start shouting at us as if we were the unreasonable ones. And it doesn't end there. She can be surprisingly ignorant and inappropriate, making offensive comments towards people of color or those she perceives as different. The worst thing is that she acts as if these comments are harmless, minimizing them as if they don't matter, even though she clearly embarrasses everyone around her. Her behavior creates constant tension for my husband and me, but mostly we have learned to choose our battles when it comes to dealing with her. Because of this history with my mother-in-law, I try to avoid her as much as possible. However, I must admit that the feeling is mutual. She doesn't like me very much either. In her eyes, I represent the complete opposite of her values. She has made her disapproval of my lifestyle and the decisions my husband and I have made together very clear. For example, I earn more than my husband, something she finds totally unacceptable, as she believes that a man should always be the breadwinner. In addition, we have a cook and a maid who take care of all our household chores. I don't do any of the cleaning or cooking myself, and my husband never complains about it. In fact, he is completely satisfied with how we have organized our life, but for her, this arrangement is unacceptable. What really infuriates her, however, is our decision not to have children. She simply cannot understand why a couple would choose to remain childless. For this reason, we love to spend our money on ourselves, traveling, going out to restaurants, enjoying our hobbies, something that she deeply detests. She considers it selfish and believes that I have poisoned her son's mind with these ideas. She is convinced that before he met me, my husband wanted a traditional life, with children and a wife devoted to the home. At the beginning of our relationship, she constantly pressured me to get pregnant. She kept insisting on how a woman's life is meaningless without children, how I would regret it if I didn't have them, and how it was my obligation to give her grandchildren. When I stood firm, making it clear that I would not change my mind, she became even more unpleasant. Instead of accepting our decision, she told the whole family that I was infertile, and that her poor son was suffering because of me. She presented it as if I were incapable of having children, and that the decision not to have them was not mutual but exclusively my responsibility. This caused a huge argument, and fortunately my husband defended me, making it clear to everyone that it was our joint decision not to have children. He made it very clear to his mother that he was as committed to a child-free life as I was. He was also furious with her for trying to tarnish my reputation and lay all the blame at my door. Although I appreciated his support, the situation left a bitter taste. Even after all the fuss, my mother-in-law never apologized. Not once did she admit her mistake or try to reconcile, and since then she has practically ignored me, which honestly suits me fine, because I do exactly the same. At this point, we both keep our distance, and I'm fine with that. Returning to the call I received today from my mother-in-law, I must say that I was already surprised to see her name on the screen. She usually calls my husband when she has something to communicate, especially since she and I are not exactly close, but I decided to answer thinking that maybe it was important. However, as soon as I said hello, she started shouting. She was shouting at me, accusing me of having the audacity to give her daughter a car in poor condition. According to her, the simple fact of offering such a vehicle was an insult. She went on to say that her daughter was not a poor damsel in distress, and that I had no right to belittle her by giving her what she called a banger. I tried to remain calm and gently explained that, although the car was old, it still worked extraordinarily well. My husband and I drove it regularly when we needed an extra vehicle, so it wasn't dilapidated or unreliable. We really wanted to help my sister-in-law by making her daily commute easier, which is why we decided to give her the car as a gift. But my mother-in-law refused to listen. She interrupted me and started shouting again, saying that if we really wanted to help, we should have bought her a new car, because according to her, my daughter deserves the best. Her tone and sense of entitlement left me completely stunned. At that moment, I firmly but politely reminded her that my sister-in-law could eventually save up and buy her own vehicle. Helping her did not mean that it was our obligation to give her something new. This car was a practical solution to her current situation, and that was the intention behind the gift. My mother-in-law was obviously not satisfied with my response and argued that we were being stingy and that the money saved by not raising children could be put to better use taking care of her daughter, who in her words was now suffering so much. Hearing her say that made me roll my eyes so hard that I was surprised I couldn't hear it over the phone. Let's not forget that my sister-in-law is not exactly an innocent victim in her situation. She ended her marriage by demanding an open relationship from her good and loyal husband. And now, when my husband and I were trying hard to help her, My mother-in-law had the nerve to turn our generosity into a complaint and act as if we owed her daughter something more luxurious. It was frustrating, to say the least. My mother-in-law's sense of entitlement never ceases to amaze me. I told her that I would pass on her message to my husband, and I also made it clear that I planned to talk directly to my sister-in-law about the whole situation. I wanted to hear from my sister-in-law herself if she really shared these feelings. After all, when we gave her the car yesterday, she seemed genuinely grateful, even pleasantly surprised by the gesture. But now, after my mother-in-law's outburst, I felt I needed to verify. I wanted to know if my sister-in-law also considered the car some kind of insult, or if this was simply my mother-in-law being dramatic as usual. My mother-in-law then hung up in disgust, practically smashing the phone. Her attitude irritated me. The whole situation is frustrating, because what should have been a kind and helpful gesture has now been turned into something negative, and I don't appreciate this ingratitude at all. So Reddit, Sita for giving my old car to my sister-in-law when she urgently needed it? Update 1. Well, after reading all your comments and reflecting deeply, I decided to back off and handle this situation carefully. First, I knew I needed to wait until I could talk to my husband about it. I didn't want to jump to conclusions or act impulsively, especially since this whole episode had left me frustrated and confused. When we both arrived home from work, I asked him to sit down while I explained everything that had happened. I told him how his mother had called me earlier that day and practically scolded me for giving my old car to his sister. I shared how she called it an insult and even suggested that I should have bought her a new one. My husband's reaction was almost identical to mine. He was perplexed by how demanding his mother was acting. He couldn't believe she had the audacity to behave like that, especially when we were only trying to help her sister. After listening to me, my husband decided to deal with the situation directly. He picked up the phone and called his sister, inviting her to have lunch at our house the following day. We both agreed that a face-to-face conversation would be the best way to handle this. That way we could clarify everything, hear her side of the story, and make sure there were no misunderstandings about the car or our intentions in giving it to her. We want to make it clear to her that we gave her the car as a kindness and to support her during these difficult times, not because we thought she was poor or anything similar, as my mother-in-law insinuated. If there is any confusion, or if our actions were misinterpreted, we want to resolve it directly with her. My husband and I feel that an honest and open conversation about this is preferable to allowing the matter to become an unnecessary drama. Update 2. Today my sister-in-law came to lunch and honestly, it seemed like something momentous. Thanks to the old car we gave her, she was able to bring her 2 children. The children looked happy as they played in our garden. My husband and I thought it would be the ideal moment to clear things up and have a sincere conversation. So while the children were having fun, the 3 of us sat down to talk in the living room. We mentioned what my mother-in-law had said to me on the phone without beating about the bush. We explained how she had accused us of being insulting with our gift and demanded to know why we hadn't bought her daughter a new car. Then we asked my sister-in-law directly if she shared that opinion. We wanted to know if she also saw the car as some kind of an insult. Her answer left us totally stunned. She admitted that she agreed with her mother. Although she acknowledged that the gift was made with good intentions, she said she felt hurt and said that we lacked the decency to get her a new car, especially since, according to her, we could easily afford it. Hearing her say that left us both stunned. We thought we had done something useful and considerate for her, but there she was, essentially confirming my mother-in-law's demanding attitude. My husband, clearly as annoyed as I was, asked his sister why she hadn't simply refused the car if she didn't like it. Her response increased our frustration. She said she wanted to refuse it, but as she had no alternative available, she had to keep quiet and accept it. It was as if she admitted that she used the car out of necessity, but wanted to make it clear that she felt it wasn't good enough. In that moment, her ingratitude became painfully evident. We had made an effort to help her through a difficult time, and instead of appreciating our consideration, she focused on what we didn't do. It was painful, to say the least, and made us question whether it was worth helping her through all this drama. The whole situation was starting to irritate me deeply. My sister-in-law's attitude showed that she didn't value our gesture at all. She was treating my beloved old car, my father's last memory, as if it were below her expectations. I felt that she didn't see it as a thoughtful and practical gift, but as something to which she was entitled simply because it came from us. I had given it to her in good faith, hoping to make her life easier, but now I felt that she belittled the gesture. If that was really how she felt, why on earth should I continue trying to help her? Besides, why were my sister-in-law and my mother-in-law so obsessed with our money? Did they really believe that we had unlimited resources to splash out with? Both my husband and I work extremely hard for everything we have. Every penny comes from countless hours dedicated to our jobs. Yet somehow, because we are family, they think they are entitled to the fruits of our labor? Fed up with their ingratitude, I told him straight that he was right. We shouldn't have given him my old car. If he thought it was below his expectations, then he should leave the keys after lunch, because I no longer felt comfortable giving it to him. Her face showed total surprise, and she immediately argued that I was insulting her even more by taking the car back. I didn't understand why she would want to take back her gift when I had given it to her to help her. But I stood firm, telling her that the recipient cannot make demands. She was in no position to complain about something intended as a kind gesture. I told her that if she couldn't show gratitude for the help received, especially during these difficult times, then she had no right to complain. My sister-in-law then tried to argue that I didn't even need the car and suggested that I should sell it and give her the money so that she could start saving for a new one. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. She was basically asking me to sell something with sentimental value to me and hand over the proceeds to her. As if it were a reasonable request, her level of demand was unbelievable, and I couldn't contain my frustration any longer. Fortunately, my husband intervened before the situation escalated. He told her clearly that her request was absurd and that she had crossed a line. He reminded her that, although we had tried to help and be friendly up to that point, we would not offer any more support in the future, and that, from that moment on, she and her children were on their own. We had finished trying to be conciliatory, trying to help someone who clearly did not appreciate anything we did for her. My husband firmly backed me up, and I was relieved to see him defend me so clearly. This did not please my sister-in-law at all, who raised her voice calling us stingy. She insisted that we could easily just give her money, instead of allowing her and her children to suffer so much. Honestly, I was surprised at how quickly she went from attacking us to directly attacking us for trying to help her. My husband, equally irritated, tried to make the point that she was an adult and needed to take responsibility for her own life and her children. But my sister-in-law completely rejected this argument. She replied that families should support each other, and instead of working in her low-paid restaurant job, she thought her brother should send her money every month for her expenses. How dare she? That's when my husband really set limits. He told her that he wouldn't send her money every month so that she could stay at home doing nothing. He explained that if she wanted to improve her situation through higher education or training to get a better job, he would be happy to help. But he wouldn't give her handouts without justification. Honestly, I was starting to feel like I was seeing a completely different side of my sister-in-law. Maybe it was always there, but now it was obvious. Before, I could understand how she might have depended on her ex-husband for everything, so she didn't really care how much money we had, but now that she was divorced, she suddenly seemed very interested in what we could give her. It was frustrating, to say the least. My sister-in-law seemed furious with us. She clearly wasn't in the mood to stay for lunch or to continue talking. She quickly gathered up her children, muttered a few words, and left. She left the keys to my car, which was the only thing that mattered to me at that moment. Later that day, I received a long message from her that only intensified my anger. She went on and on about how selfish we were and how a few $100s a month would help her and her children enormously. She almost pleaded in her message, complaining that her brother had so much while she and her sister had nothing. The whole tone suggested that she thought we owed her something, as if her situation was our responsibility. It was outrageous to read. I couldn't believe how demanding she sounded, how completely unaware she was that we were under no obligation to give her anything at all, and her nerve in saying that we had so much money when we clearly worked extremely hard for what we had achieved made it all feel worse. At that point, I simply got fed up with the whole situation and ignored her messages. Update 3. Some time has passed. Honestly, we are still not sure if we are ready to completely cut ties with my sister-in-law or mother-in-law. This whole situation weighs on us. We feel some empathy for my sister-in-law, especially because, although she has been ungrateful and somewhat demanding, she is not as terrible as my mother-in-law. Even so, there is still that uncomfortable feeling that if we start helping her now, she might expect more and more from us. And that worries us both. It's true that we could easily send her a few $100s a month, but honestly, there's no guarantee that she would use that money wisely. Would she spend it on what's really important, like the needs of her children or improving her situation? Or would she just waste it and come back asking for more? We don't want to allow her to continue depending on us when she could be really trying to stand on her own 2 feet. As for her children, of course we love them, and we care about them. We have always given them expensive gifts at Christmas and birthdays, and if they ever need money for university or something essential in the future, we will definitely be there to help. But for now, our priority is to ensure that her mother learns to be more self-sufficient. The reality is that my sister-in-law already has quite a few advantages. She lives rent-free, something that many would like. My husband also sends my mother-in-law money every month to help with bills and household expenses, so she's not struggling financially in that way. In addition, her children's expenses are covered by their father. All she has to do is work and earn a living. It doesn't seem like an unreasonable demand for an adult. We think it's time she stopped depending on everyone else and took control of her own life. In the end, we just want her to take responsibility for her future. We are willing to support her emotionally and help in any way we can, but we don't want her to fall into the trap of thinking she deserves financial help just because she's family. It's a complicated situation, and we're not yet sure how we'll proceed, but we definitely want her to learn to stand on her own 2 feet. Furthermore, after that conversation with my sister-in-law, my mother-in-law tried to call and urge my husband to give in to his sister's demands. She pointed out how we were being too harsh and that families should support each other, especially in difficult times. She went on to mention how my sister-in-law was struggling and, as her brother, my husband should do more to help her. My mother-in-law insisted that this was not about charity, but about keeping the family together. My husband made it clear to his mother that, although he understood his sister's difficulties, he could not simply solve the problem with money. He said that, from now on, we would not be manipulated by guilt or demands. We would help when necessary, but we would no longer be treated as an inexhaustible resource. Update 4. It's been almost 4 months since my last update, and I just wanted to briefly report on how things have progressed. After everything that has happened, my sister-in-law has finally decided what to do with her future. She has chosen to pursue a career in digital marketing. Honestly, this is a relief because it seems that she is taking concrete steps to improve her situation. We were really worried that she would continue to depend on others without making an effort to support herself, but this decision shows that she is trying to take control of her career and her life. She has been researching courses and programs, and, from what we have heard, she seems quite committed. I must admit that it represents a big change from the situation a few months ago, when we doubted whether she would ever make a genuine effort to improve her circumstances. My husband and I are hopeful that this decision will help her become more independent, and, in fact, I feel somewhat proud of her for taking this step. It is a gradual process, but we are optimistic that she is on the right track. I sincerely hope that she persists in this effort.